So I'm Dr. Kim Corbidge. I'm the principal of Lewis Elementary School in the Cape Henlopen School District.
I'm Alfredo Rodriguez, the assistant principal at Lewis Elementary, the Cape Henlopen School District as well.
And I'm Brennan Clarke. I'm the multilingual learner specialist at Lewis Elementary here in Cape Henlopen.
So our district promise is what we set everything that we do by, and it's excellence, equity, responsiveness, every student, every classroom, every day. And throughout our presentation, you'll see that.
So we're going to kick things off by talking about student support today and what we do to help promote the success of our multilingual learners through multilingual learner inclusion. All right, so a little bit of background. In January of 2023, we were recognized by the Delaware Department of Education as a recognition school for the growth our ESL students have made towards English language proficiency based off of their 2022 access scores. And as being part of acknowledged as a recognition school, we were given an $8,000 grant from the Department of Education. Looking at how we wanted to use that grant, we looked at various data sources. We looked at our math data, ELA data, state testing, access data, all those big data sources to determine the best way to use this funding to support our students. And one of the big areas that we looked at, so you can go back to the other slide real quick. One of the big areas that we looked at was smarter balance testing and how well all of our students did on smarter balance testing. And we saw that even though our MLL made growth,
I'm sorry, I'm multitasking.
Should I ask it, Kevin?
Dr. Person, do you mind muting yourself?
I got an email from the Learning Center.
We're so happy to have you with us. Thank you, Dr. Person. So one of our areas that we looked at was our smarter balance testing to see how well our students were doing on state testing. And we saw that even though our MLLs were making growth with their English language proficiency, that a lot of our MLLs, students of color and special students underperforming on state testing. So what we wanted to then do was look at what we could do to improve all educational outcomes for all students. And so we decided to reach out to the DOE to create a PSYOP lead team as a way to infuse PSYOP and its instructional practices into our classroom practices for our classroom teachers, because we knew that PSYOP will be a great vehicle for improving our Tier 1 instruction. And so with the help of the DOE, and I believe Carrie Knight is on here, and I noticed, Carrie, that your background is interstellar, which is very on point for you because you're out of this world and you did so much to help us get established with our PSYOP lead team. So what we did was we contacted Carrie Knight at the Delaware Department of Ed to help train up a core group of teacher leaders in our building. Those were our math specialists, our reading specialists, our administrative team, our speech and language pathologists as a way to infuse and bring in that spec ed lens into things. And we went through that PSYOP lead team training over consecutive 3 Mondays, and Carrie Knight did a great job of leading that training. So big shout out and kudos to her for her leadership in getting us started on our PSYOP journey. So just so we're all on the same page here, I know this is an MLL conference, so there's probably a lot of people who know what PSYOP is or have some degree of understanding, but I just want to make sure that there's some common understanding with everybody here on what PSYOP is. So PSYOP is an instructional framework based on best practices. It's been in the field for 30 plus years. It's empirically researched. It's a great language. It's a great model for promoting academic language. And it's built upon 2 principles. The first being that we need to make content comprehensible to MLLs and to all students, and that all teachers are language teachers. So it's not just MLL teachers are the ones teaching language, but every teacher in the school is teaching the language of their content area. So for example, your math teacher is teaching the language of mathematics, your social studies teacher is teaching the language of social studies, your science teacher is teaching the language of science, because in order to be proficient and to do well in these content areas, your students need to have the language in order to understand the content. And so those are the 2 big principles of PSYOP. So within SIOP, there's a general framework of 8 components and 30 instructional features, and they're geared towards benefiting all students. We're not going to go through all 8 components and all 30 features today. We could have an entire presentation on SIOP, but just to create some general understanding of what SIOP is, the first component is lesson preparation, where you look at the lesson planning process and teachers come up with both a content objective and a language objective in order to make the content more accessible to students. It also involves building background, where students make connections to the things they already know and their prior learning, as well as giving them explicit exposure to the academic language that they're going to need in order to access the content that they're going to be studying in the main lesson. There's also a focus on comprehensible input, and that's just how the teacher looks at how well they are to present the information to the students. That involves such things like adjusting their speech, providing think time, modeling academic tasks like that general, the gradual release, and then using different modes of learning to engage students. And then another component is strategies, where students look or teachers look at how are we going to scaffold the instruction and provide higher order thinking skills and activities so that not only are we meeting students where they are, but we're pushing them to where we want them to be. And then a big part of SIOP is interaction. If you've ever attended any SIOP training, one of the big facts that they present is that the amount of teacher talk in a classroom is about 80%. And we know through research that when those who are doing the speaking are doing the work and therefore doing the learning. So if we can reduce the amount of teacher talk in a classroom and turn that over to the students and increase opportunities for interaction, then more students are doing more of the talking, therefore they're doing more of the working, and therefore they're doing more of the learning. So a big part of SIOP is looking at creating more interaction between students and reducing that teacher talk. And then we go into practice and application, how well that lesson is being implemented, especially through lesson delivery. And then at last, review and assessment, looking at what the students have done and assessing their learning for learning and reviewing whether things need to change for future lessons or not. So with it looks like we lost our presentation, went down a little bit. So if we could pull that back up, we'll talk about our SIOP journey.
Do you see it, Mr. Clarke, the SIOP journey?
I do not see it. Does anyone else in the audience see it, or we do see it. Okay, so let me pull up my presentation and we'll just go through there. So Mr. Rodriguez, if you could just navigate through for me as we go through this. Sorry, technical glitches, but we'll make do. All righty. So our SIOP journey. So like we mentioned, in January of 2023, Lewis Elementary was named a recognition school by the DOE. And then we created our SIOP lead team. In September of this current school year, we did an MLL data dive where we looked at how well our MLLs were doing. And then we looked at the smarter balancers also to see who was doing well, who was getting the 3s and 4s on state testing, who was getting the 1s and 2s. And then we started rolling it. And that was the why behind this whole SIOP journey, is to create better outcomes for all students. And so back in October, we started out with our first SIOP PLC, and we'll talk about our SIOP PLC model shortly, and that we've been continuing to deliver SIOP PLCs or SIOP lessons through and training through PLCs throughout the school year. Next year, we're looking to continue our SIOP PLCs, and then we hope to have some teachers present model lessons where they're showing how they've incorporated those different components of SIOP into their lessons, and then doing some peer walkthroughs where teachers look for components as they walk through classrooms to see other teachers incorporating SIOP in their lessons. And then hopefully by close to this time next year, I hope we'll be at our basic level of implementation, and then we'll continue going through that model. So hopefully by the end of June 2026, we will be in full SIOP implementation. All right, so we go to the next slide, Mr. Rodriguez, about talking about SIOP training via PLC. So thinking about how we're going to turnkey our SIOP training from our SIOP lead team onto our classroom teachers, because they're the ones who are really going to be doing the bulk of the work here, the heavy lifting, since they are the ones who are interacting with students every single day and doing such a great job at it. We decided to dedicate one PLC a month to SIOP as our vehicle for training up our teachers and getting them to infuse some SIOP components and features into their instruction. And so the timing worked out perfectly with DTGSS and how it's become a student-focused lesson observation and things like that. So we started out with just creating content objectives to make our content learning explicit for students so they know what they're looking for, the why behind their learning, and the purpose for their learning. Some other areas that we've also talked about this year have been additional lesson prep, supplementary materials. What can we bring in to supplement the content so that we can make the content more accessible or more comprehensible to our students, as well as text amplification. So giving our students, not watering down the content, for grade level text, but what we can do to allow students to better access grade level text via text amplification, involving things like chunking, pointing out pronouns and pronoun reference, pointing out verbs and verb tenses, and how the language we use changes with the content that we study. So the verbs that we use to study science are not the same verbs that we use to study mathematics and social studies. And then also looking at building background knowledge so that students have the language and have the prior learning that they need in order to understand different content areas that are related to our instructional units that we'll talk about in just a little bit. And then coming up, we'll be talking about comprehensible input at our next PLC, because all this is about is us working together to improve educational outcomes for all students, not just MLLs, and SIOP is a really great vehicle for this. So, wasn't mentioned yet, but Lewis Elementary is a Spanish immersion school, and we are we have full program from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And how SIOP applies to both the ELA and the Spanish side is that SIOP is just a language learning instructional model. So the strategies that the teachers are using on the ELA side, the English classroom, to benefit their MLLs, the Spanish teachers are then using in the SLA side to teach the target language Spanish to our native English speakers to help them with the Spanish language, as that's the target language. So it's strategies that are created as best practices for MLLs, but it also goes both ways because it is a language learning model. All right, so how this relates to our curriculum. So here at Lewis Elementary, we use American Reading Company as our curriculum through K-5. There's some really great things about ARC. It emphasizes research, so the students spend a lot of time reading and writing. It also gives them voice and choice. So, for example, with animal adaptations in 4th grade, students get to determine and decide what animal they want to research. So it really gives them a sense of buy-in and motivation when it comes to their research as they're just determining what animal they want to look at. Same thing with weather and climate in Unit 2 for 3rd grade. The students get to determine which weather phenomenon they want to study, whether it be blizzards, tornadoes, hurricanes. And so they have a voice and choice on what they would like to study. And a lot of the research is built around student-led inquiry for research questions, which are called RQs within ARC. The RQs depend on the unit, but usually there's about 5 or 6. And these guide the students through their research, and the RQs are different for each unit and for each grade level. And a lot of it is all about building background knowledge around core content. So for example, students are getting a lot of depth when it comes to a lot of these topics as opposed to breadth of knowledge. So they're really building some deep background knowledge. And these are the units that they study. So looking at ARC and scaffolded RQs, so one way that we help to support our students and our MLLs, as well as students who are struggling academically, is providing them with scaffolded research questions and ways to help them demonstrate their learning and their research. So for example, on the left here, we have the grade 3 unit 2 weather and climate RQ with some sentence starters. And this is just to help our students who are not quite proficient in English, or some of those students who have special ed supports or need support with their writing, and just helping them, give them some support and some scaffolds for their for their writing and their research. And the same thing with animal adaptations in grade 4. You see that example there, is that the students are given a topic sentence, and then they're using these sentence frames to help them share their research. So another way that we help to promote student success at Lewis Elementary, and this is something that we've taken on this year, and it's through a phonics-based literacy intervention program called UFly, which comes from the University of Florida Literacy Institute, and it's a great program. We've seen a lot of success with it for struggling learners or struggling readers. It's built around an explicit phonics-based literacy instruction. It's a systematic program that teaches foundational literacy skills, and it has usually each lesson is built into 2 days. So for example, if you look at our schedule right there, it has day 1. The lessons start out with a phonemic awareness activity where the students practice decoding and encoding. So they're given sounds, duh, g, and then they have to blend that to create the word dog. And then the next part is encoding, where they're given a word and they have to break that into the parts. The visual drill is based off of looking at different graphemes, and the students have to look at the grapheme, say its name, and say the sound it represents. And this builds from kindergarten all the way up through 2nd grade, so that as you get into consonant digraphs, the students are looking at consonant digraphs and the sounds they make, and then they get into vowel digraphs and everything. So it really builds upon itself. The auditory drill is the students are given a word mat or a whiteboard, and then they are given a phoneme that they then have to encode as a grapheme. So you're giving them a sound, and then they write the letter or the consonant digraph or vowel digraph that represents that sound. And then the other part goes into a blending board where the students then manipulate sounds and letters to write, to create words, and then that carries over into their ability to write. And then each lesson has a new concept. So for example, earlier this week, I taught a lesson on consonant digraphs where we look at a few digraphs, the WH, PH, CH, SH, and then the students are then able to build a little bit more background knowledge on that. And then they're given some activities involving reading and writing. It's a great program. The best part about it is that it's free. So I'll drop a link into the chat when Dr. Corbidge presents about the family support that our school offers to our families. It's a great program. The only cost associated with it is a $70 teacher manual, which I highly suggest you buy if you're interested in using this as a literacy intervention program, because it has all the lessons laid out from start to finish. It's very little prep. It has the research background behind UFly, as well as the procedural aspects that you need to understand in order to conduct the lessons with fidelity. The lessons are all free. They're all on the UFly website. The resources are free. There's things that you can send home. There's different games and activities that you can use with students. And we've seen a lot of success with this program as a literacy intervention tool. It can start in the lower grades, and I've been using it with some upper grade MLLs who are not proficient in literacy, and it's really helping to close some of those gaps. All right, and then something new that we're starting is Conexiones Escolares, so school connections. We recently had a large influx of high school-aged MLLs with low reading proficiency, not only in English, but also in their home language, which is not uncommon, but it does present a challenge. And then we're also seeing that they're having difficulty with the silent period, even in their L1. So even when these MLLs who are predominantly Spanish speaking are going into their Spanish classroom for Spanish instruction, they're not saying much. So a couple of our MLL specialists at the high school level working with these students, we're thinking outside of the box about what can we do to better support these students, to help them with their literacy, to get them out of that silent period. And so they had the idea of, what if we brought them down to Lewis Elementary and had them interact with some elementary-aged MLLs in the immersion program in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, as a way to help lower their affective filters, as a way for them to get some exposure to early literacy foundations that they might be lacking, or to get some instruction towards closing some gaps in their phonics. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring in some of these newcomers into our immersion programs in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. as a way for them to support our native English speakers and our MLLs in that Spanish immersion setting, but also giving them exposure to Spanish language arts and then content and then eventually we're going to transition them into some ELA classrooms and to like some of my groups where they'll be given some lower level text and some phonics instruction to help improve their reading abilities. All right, sorry. So I went through that without being able to see the screen. So I wasn't sure if there's anybody who had any questions or anything. If there are, I see some messages in the chat. I'll get to those as I turn things over to Dr. Corbidge if they're related to any of the information that I just presented. And I'll drop in some links to that UFly materials as well.
Brennan, I don't have a question. I just have a comment. I love that initiative. Please do keep us posted as to how it progresses, because one of the foundations of reading is phonemic awareness and phonics. And unfortunately, we don't have that anymore at the secondary level. So I'm very curious about how this inclusion of our secondary students is going to work, because that can be a model for other schools.
Yes, definitely, without a doubt. And we're really excited to have this connection. I don't think we've ever done anything like this. So it's great that our high school teachers are thinking outside the box. And I think it's gonna be a great way to have our younger students develop relationships with older students and kind of have that mentoring aspect as well. So I think there's a lot of good that can come from this for both the little guys and the bigger guys. So it's gonna be a really nice connection. All right, so I see some messages popping into the chat. I'm going to go ahead and handle those, and I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Corbidge, who's going to talk about family support. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to talk about mostly family inclusion and how we include our MLL students and their families. So one of the things we started at Lewis Elementary, we began in 2018. Brennan and I collaborated together, Brennan's idea. I just help to make it happen, as a way to inform our Spanish-speaking families about school events, announcements, general information, and processes and procedures. So we just had our last night for this year, last evening. And the way it works is we have staff, we have our immersion teachers who translate. We have English speaking staff that provide childcare. We invite all of our Hispanic families. Some speak English, most do not. We offer dinner, which is usually in the form of pizza. And then we have the childcare from our teachers for school-age students, as well as younger siblings. A lot of them have younger students and older students. Some of our former students come back to visit and are happy to be here, so they come along too. And depending on when in the year it is or what might come up for the needs of our families, we've invited different community members and different organizations that can be resources for our Hispanic families, and we share that with them, or that entity shares their information to the families. So this was last night. Some of the pictures, we usually have about anywhere from 30 to 50 families that come. And so those are just some of the pictures from our cafeteria being filled last night. And then an example of one of our presentations of what we show the families. This was from September of this year. And we sort of just have the agenda set for them. We do our introductions. One of the things we point out to them is a vacation form in case they go away, just to let them know it's in Spanish, where it's at, where they can find that for their child. A lot of procedures and things like that. We tell them about homework, what they can see their child come home with. We try to give them visuals, the things that their child will be doing at home at night for homework, so they can understand that. We make sure we always talk to them about lunch, the bus, lunch, recess, what time school starts, what time it ends, those types of things. And especially that important part about waiting, getting 10 to 15 minutes before the bus time. And it could be 10 to 15 minutes after the time. Another thing we try to do whenever possible within the presentation is to give them QR codes. They always have their phones with them, and that's the easiest way for them. In this instance, for this activity, this time of the year, we made sure they had PayPams, which is, I think, across the state, a way for them to put money in their students' account for lunches. There was the menu, and I don't remember what the farm thing was. I don't remember that one. Do you remember, Brennan, what that form was?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the school year, a lot of our families need assistance filling out the free and reduced meal application. So if you've ever seen it, it's a pretty robust, complicated form. Although the information it asks for is pretty simple, so we just help them navigate that.
Some of the other things we do, we let them know. One of the most important things we let them know is how to communicate and not to be afraid to communicate, that we have the language line, that we can always use the language line. They should never feel that that's a barrier if they don't speak English. We have Remind and Seesaw that they can sign up for, and things can come through in their language. And then we also let them know a procedure that this is our folder, that homework folder that comes home, so any important papers would be in there. We're pretty fortunate to be the immersion school K through 5, because most of our Spanish speaking students, they do have
She's just going over.
most of our
I'm gonna make a bulletin board and I want your opinion.
Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself.
Yeah.
Hi. Cause you're artsy. I'm artsy too, but sometimes I can't see. So I'm not gonna do all that. What I wanted to do was write, we are, and then I have all
trying to
these
figure out how to
things
make them.
that the children are filling out.
Okay, go ahead. I'll just talk. I don't know how to get their attention. I was trying to, oh wait, I think I found it. Got it. Okay. Go ahead. Oh. And this is another thing we make sure they know one side is to keep and one side is to send back. Just those procedural things that might have been different from where they came from, so that they know how we do things and what to expect. Another thing we always make sure we do, and sometimes we do this in the form of a QR code too, but we always make sure they know until their next Unidad night, all of the school activities, events, things that they should know, PTO events, when there isn't school, so they understand all of those things and have those dates. So those are just some examples of some of the things that we show. Then during school, we try to involve our families as much as possible. Hispanic Heritage Month, our 5th grade immersion teacher reached out to families and asked if they would be willing to share food from their culture with us. We had a big celebration during the day. The students were dressed in different types of heritage dress, and they did dances and songs, and the parents were there. They brought them in, they created props for them to do. They were very involved with it. And the food, we had so much food for our staff, and it was really neat to see, because some of our immersion teachers are from all different countries, and they didn't know some of the foods because it was from different country, different Hispanic cultures and countries. So it was fun to see that. And that actually inspired other ethnicities. And we had a soul food day in February for Black History Month. Our head custodian liked that, the Hispanic Heritage Month, the sharing of the food so much, he wanted to share that. And he's also creating in May a way for all staff to bring in a food from their culture, so we can share from all of our cultures. So that kind of speared that incentive. So that was neat to see. What we're trying to do is get them, which is kind of hard to do, but we're trying to get them to feel more comfortable. We would love to have some of our Spanish speaking parents come in and volunteer in our immersion classrooms, especially in the lower grades. They can help them in the math side of things, counting and doing all the math because it has to be all done in Spanish. So we try to get them. We're not there yet. Those are our next steps. The other thing we've done is we've encouraged them to apply for jobs in our district, in our school district. And we've seen some of them at the job fair. So that's been good that we've pushed that out and they've taken us up on that. And here are some of the pictures of the students that were dressed and came in and did some presentations at our assembly that we had.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take over, and I'm going to be speaking more about the school culture. And here at Lewis Elementary, we thrive on having high expectations for all in a positive environment where all voices can be heard. So the next few slides you'll hear about our team collaboration, creating culture, future ideas, and also voices from the staff. And what I did in the last few weeks, I actually did a temperature check of our immersion teachers and their partner teachers to talk about these following questions. So as far as our school collaboration, we have 3 staff committees, one for leadership, academics, and culture. And that's kind of a model to implement ideas for our student population. And on the right-hand side, you'll see photos of our Lighthouse team from our 5th grade students. And they pretty much drive our activities and implement them throughout our school. Starting next year, we're going to actually have them from 3rd through 5th grade. So it won't be just 5th graders. It'll be 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade for the Lighthouse team. So one of the questions I asked is, how do you collaborate with your immersion partner or your team? We do have school-wide expectations like any other school. On the left-hand side, you'll see that we require our teams to weekly grade level coaching, which is our PLCs. We have immersion partner planning at least one time a week. And then we also have them collaborate with their grade team that are non-immersion as well in that content area. Throughout that planning time, we expect them to discuss all students, including our MLL, tier, special ed, and so forth. But they told me they go above and beyond our expectations, and that's on the right-hand side. They have informal communication through text, email, in person. A lot of them have morning or afternoon debriefs, daily check-ins. And this is actually really, really important, especially for our newcomers that are partnering up for the first time. One of the teams, they actually have a weekly pacing and feedback meeting. Basically, they kind of go through the content, and the week after they go through and say, how did that work? It's like almost like a reflection PLC for themselves. And then also they require themselves to download or upload resources to some type of Google Drive so everyone can share. So the next question I asked them, how's your classroom culture? How's that kind of created in your own classroom environment? And what we require on the left-hand side are expectations. Anytime that we have a theme or activity celebrate with staff, we expect that to be implemented in some type of setting, in their classroom setting, that is. We require them to have morning meetings in circles. As far as leadership, we want them to have classroom jobs and roles for their students. And then for academics, we want them to have a student voice with their feedback and their learning, set goals, especially in reading and math, and then also require them to have leadership binders, and that's part of our Lead Me program initiative. But they told me they go above that. So on the right-hand side, you'll see that they have thought partners, not only for MLL students, but anyone that needs that thought partner. It's almost like a buddy to help them along. One grade level do breakfast circles. So once a month or bi-weekly, they just bring their food up in the morning time. And they, instead of doing a morning meeting in the classroom, they just have a big circle out in the pod area. Some classrooms do have a classroom newsletter, but we do have a school-wide newsletter, actually newspaper, and everyone contributes from K through 5. And I'll show you an example about that. And some articles are in Spanish as well. We do have student-led conferences, Spanish and English. And then this year, we have 5th grade MLL students and immersion students that are mentoring our kindergartners. And again, I could list many more, but I want to make sure that I give you the ones that they were definitely important to us right now. So here are some examples on the left-hand side. As you heard from Dr. Corbidge, we celebrated our African-American staff, and the immersion students in 5th grade, they wanted to make sure that they interviewed our African-American staff, but also put it in English and Spanish. They put it into our newspaper and also a visual projection that we have in our hallways. You'll see on the very top that we have our students creating books and becoming authors and celebrating that with parents coming in and staff seeing and being read to. On the top, you'll see that we have staff shout outs. And what we do is every month we listen to what shout out that was given to another staff member from our own community here. And what we had is a 5th grade teacher. She actually had a staff shout out box for her immersion classroom. So they kind of took that on upon themselves. Anytime that we have themes for Decades Day, we make sure that students are involved in some fashion. And then we celebrate any leadership that we have, as you can see in that picture there. The 5th grade team definitely want me to share this with you. They kind of created a menu that they wanted all their immersion students to do before the end of the year. It's almost like a capstone. And I'm going to give you time to read the left-hand side, and it's in Spanish on the right-hand side, but they want every student to do at least 2 of these things. These are real-world tasks they want them to do before the end of the year to use their language and apply it, not just academically, but also in a real-world task. So I'll give you some time to look at those. And if you want to take a screenshot of that right now, I'll give you time. Okay. As I said earlier, leadership does create our culture as well. So we're a Leader in Me school. So we have jobs and roles for our students. Some of the roles that you can see in the middle there, I'm going to go ahead and say them out loud. Basically, we have announcements in English and Spanish where students can apply for that. Safety patrol throughout the hallways. Students can help out and be assistants in the art and library. We have table washers and sweepers in the cafeteria. For parent pickup, we have assistants and also sign flippers for students to go out there and flip the signs of the community businesses that we have out there advertised. And also we have a lost and found assistants that can help out with those because we have a lot of things that are being lost from our students. On the right-hand side, you'll see that we had our Title I night, and many of our leadership students came and help out our ML families to help with their reading and math activities. Academics create a culture as well. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that they have a store. The 2nd grade classroom created a store, and they created their own money, the coins and the dollar bills as well. And they had to use that money to buy the items that they wanted to buy throughout their time in their classroom. On the very bottom of that, you'll notice that there's a Leader in Me binder. He's very proud of his family, all about me items, but these are also a binder for their portfolio for the WIGs, which is a widely important goals for their academic reading and academic math goals. But there's also recognition activities that they do that they put in this binder as well. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a school newspaper, which is called the Lewis Ledger. And these are just examples of the Spanish articles that were written. One of my last questions I asked the immersion teachers for this presentation is, I know where we are and we always have room to grow. So what do we do to help you with that? And some of the things that they mentioned, not only from the teacher's perspective, but also the family and the student's perspective, they want to align the ELA units with the SLA units to make sure the content are task purpose. I was a 3rd grade immersion teacher a few years ago, the ELA side, and my immersion partner, we had just aligned our units to make sure that kind of like applied both ways. We kind of want that to happen here as well at Lewis Elementary. One of the ideas was to have a school-wide related arts, or at least introduce the immersion language at some capacity for everyone, not just the immersion cohort. I thought that was a great idea. We do have a reading and math widely important goal, but they want an immersion goal. And the menu that I showed you earlier, I think that will lend itself nicely to that. And this year we have maybe a class that will be going to a Mexican restaurant to use their applied language and use it in a way to converse with the staff and converse with each other. But the other grade levels say, what if we go to other field trips that they have to use their language, not just a restaurant? So I think that's something that we can look forward to as well. And as Brennan mentioned earlier, we will have MLL high school students coming over next year to assist our elementary students in some capacity. I want to show you a quick video. These are the voices from our immersion teachers of what their highlight of the year is and how they collaborate with each other.
Our favorite thing is our class store, which gives our students the opportunity to practice their math, Spanish, and leadership skills.
Nuestra cosa favorita es la tiendita porque nos da a nuestros estudiantes la oportunidad de practicar su matemática, su español y liderazgo.
Hola, buenos días. Yo soy Carmen Peláez. Soy maestra de tercer grado inmersión aquí en la escuela de Lewis Elementary. Ella es mi compañera de la parte de inglés, es Miss Nelson. Y a nosotras nos encanta la parte de la comunicación. Pensamos que es muy importante estar siempre en contacto con todas las familias para apoyar a los estudiantes, no solamente en la parte académica, sino también en la parte emocional. Entonces, por eso creemos que comunicación entre las maestras de inmersión es la base para el desarrollo y el progreso de nuestros estudiantes.
We love to communicate every day to make sure that we are on the same page. This helps us to best support all of our students academically and emotionally.
Gracias.
Hi, my name is Miss KJ and I teach at Lewis Elementary School, 4th grade. And one of our highlights of the immersion program is that we love to join our homerooms together for dual learning purposes whenever possible.
Hola, me llamo Señor Bradshaw, soy profesor de inmersión de cuarto grado en Lewis Elementary School. Uno de los aspectos más destacados de nuestra colaboración es que nos encanta unir nuestras aulas para el aprendizaje de idiomas en duelo siempre que sea posible. Gracias.
Thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es Verónica de Bartolo y soy la maestra de español de inmersión de 5º grado de la escuela Lewis Elementary. Creo que ver a nuestros estudiantes de inmersión como un mismo equipo e incentivarlos a entender que ser bilingües es un superpoder a través de ayudarlos a encontrar oportunidades para que lo vivan y lo experimenten es lo que muestra que nuestra colaboración es significativa.
My name is Brandy Townsend. I'm the English side of our immersion program. And I think seeing our immersion classes as one team and encouraging them to consider being bilingual as a superpower, we've been creating opportunities for them to experience it. And I think that's been the highlight of our collaboration, is just seeing them excited to have these skills.
Thank you.
I wanted to say, if I could give them longer to say what they really felt, you just got a snippet, they would definitely. We really have a great group here, and without our teachers, our immersion partners, our stakeholders, it just brings our culture together, and that's kind of definitely where I want to hit on at the very end. So, with that said, I am putting our contact information here on this screen. So if you want to do a screenshot, or if we have some time for any questions that you want us to clarify even further, we can go ahead and do that right now. Brennan, did you have a chance to answer questions in the chat? I didn't see that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've been answering some questions that have come through the chat. Although if anybody has any burning thoughts or pressing questions, feel free to come off mute and ask those now. That's the end of our presentation, but we'll stick around for the next 10-15 minutes and hang out and talk about any of the things that we discussed in this presentation. If anybody wants any more details or is interested in anything that we discussed, for example, like the La Comunidad Nights, the different things that we do for family support, staff support, student support. We're here to discuss those things or share resources with you. Also,
And I just
go ahead, Dr. Corbidge.
No, I just wanted to shout out to Amanda Arshamba, who's on here, because we couldn't do what we do without her support and her allowing us to do our own thing. Otherwise, we'd be not able to do all these things. So.
And we do want to plug, before people start getting out of here, reminder that Carrie sent out. So tonight is Delta, which is our statewide nonprofit advocacy organization for MLLs. We're having our in-person educator network event and fundraiser at 9 East Tap House in Dover between 5 and 8. It's formerly Frazier's. it's going to be a great time to connect with educators who have been to this conference today, and to have a nice in-person networking event. And the proceeds from tonight will go to MLL financial awards that are going to be awarded to graduating current MLLs or former MLLs who are graduating high school this May or June, to help them in their post-secondary endeavors. So a good event with a good cause, but we're going to hang out for a little bit if anybody has any questions or needs any more details.
No questions, just comments. You guys made a great team, but this time my comment is for Dr. Corbidge and Mr. Rodriguez. You cannot imagine how important is that you as administrators take the lead with Brennan in this, because it makes it a school-wide initiative, and you can see that in the activities that you do. So the administrator support is paramount in any of the activities. You guys have taken the lead, and it shows. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's easy with Brennan because he just throws an idea and I'm like, go ahead. If you want to do it, you can.
You
And he
cannot
does a beautiful
imagine
job.
how important is you take that idea and run with it. Don't underestimate that. You guys make it happen. He can come with 10 ideas, and if you shut them down, nothing happens. So the fact that you're willing to listen and go with it is what leadership is about.
I 100% agree. You're right.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, you know how to contact us. This was recorded and we can get you any information. Just reach out. We'd be more than willing to share.